Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about how streaming saved Dungeons and Dragons' life, and how really Dungeons and Dragons would probably have died without Matthew Mercer. All right, so how do I understand this? How do I understand this important truth about Dungeons and Dragons? Well, I understand it because I watched the movie Lyle Lyle Crocodile, which contains very powerful lessons for understanding modern Dungeons and Dragons. For understanding, modern Dungeons and Dragons. Spoilers for Lyle Lyle Crocodile in this content. Also, just throwing this out there, Lyle Lyle Crocodile is a 5 out of 5 star movie. I cried when I saw Lyle Lyle Crocodile. It literally moved me to tears. It is a powerful film that has powerful life lessons for any American, and I honestly suggest that every Dungeon Master sees Lyle Lyle Crocodile. And one of the nice things about that is when I say every Dungeon Master, I mean every Dungeon Master, not just the ones who are 18 plus, right? By the way, Dungeons and Dragons still invites young adults starting at 12 years old to Dungeon Master, and I love that Dungeons and Dragons is available to people who are 12 years old. A lot of people need it when you're 12. I needed Dungeons and Dragons when I was 12. I hate to think where I would have ended up without Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm just so glad that a lot of 12-year-olds have Dungeons and Dragons today to set them on the right path, right? It's incredibly helpful. It's a beautiful thing, and it's really nice. And Lyle Lyle Crocodile is available to young adults as well, which is really, I really like that. And it's exciting. So basically, what did Lyle Lyle Crocodile explain to me about Matthew Mercer and streaming in Dungeons and Dragons? Well, this gets interesting. So, Lyle Lyle Crocodile is about a singing crocodile, okay? And he is encouraged by this flim-flam musician to sing for audiences. And Lyle's like, no, I don't want to sing for audiences. I want to sing for people I care about. I want to sing with people I care about. And the reason why is, by the way, Lyle does not talk. Lyle does not talk. He just sings, right? He's a regular alligator who lives in New York City. He lives in a brownstone. He doesn't live in the sewer, and he eats like caviar out of dumpsters, right? But that's his thing, right? So Lyle is, he's like, hey, my art is my songs, and I don't share this with the mainstream. I share this. I only sing with and I only sing for people I care about. And when I share my art, I want that art to improve them. I want that art. It's not some form of escapism. It's not some way we're entertaining each other. It's to help someone. It's to benefit someone. My art is to help and to benefit, right? And so he refuses to sing for large audiences. He only sings for small audiences, exactly the same size as your Dungeons and Dragons table. Quite interesting, right? But somebody, so this grumpy old dude who lives in the same brownstone as him, all the way in the basement, finds out about Lyle and says, "Hey, you are a crocodile living in a brownstone," and Lyle, its world is our world, right? It's like, hey, what if there was a crocodile who could sing, right? And that's the premise. Our Earth, IRL plus singing crocodile, right? And go, right? And it does. It just goes from there, and it's incredible. And so basically, Lyle Crocodile gets to the point where, and so Lyle is like, I'm not going to share my art unless it improves people, and I'm only sharing it with small audiences, right? So, but Lyle is found out, right? And he is captured by New York City's animal handling department, right? And he is put into the zoo, right? But he will die in the zoo. And the reason why is, one, he's not used to zoo food. Two, there's a bunch of very aggressive, man-eating, human-eating, like savage crocodiles who don't have his refinement and don't sing, right? So it becomes very clear that Lyle will die in the zoo. He will die of sadness. He will die of malnutrition. He will die because he's bitten by another alligator. There's about 15 different ways that Lyle is really close to death by being put into a pit with a bunch of other non-singing crocodiles, right? He can't live in that environment, right? So basically, Josh, the boy who befriends Lyle, helps Hector, the flim-flam magician that actually taught Lyle to sing, to dance and sing on key. Lyle already knew how to sing before he met Hector, but he became a better singer through Hector, right? So the two of them break Lyle out, right? But then he gets back to the position where it's clear that the animal people are going to capture him again. So Josh is like, hey, we've got to show the world that you can sing, because if we show them that you can sing, you can live in the brownstone and you will live. Because if you go back to that New York City zoo, you will die, right? Like you're not a native, you're more human than you are crocodile now, right? You can't return to that world. You will literally die, right? So and Josh says to Lyle, you must sing, because if you don't, you will die, right? And then Lyle does. He sings on What You Got, which is like, Dancing with the Stars or whatever. It's a live show, and he just shows everybody, hey, I'm like you, I'm human. I can live in a brownstone. I don't have to live in the New York Zoo, right? And everybody's like, yeah, great. If you can't sing, you gotta live in a zoo. If you can sing, you can live in a New York City brownstone, right? That's what happened with Dungeons and Dragons. We had these beautiful, wonderful little tables, and we told stories that mattered amongst ourselves. And guess what? We were on the edge of death, right? The reality is we weren't growing, and we were going to die with the grognards, right? The grognards grognards were the majority of Dungeons and Dragons until the critters. Now there are more critters, far more critters than there are grognards. But Dungeons and Dragons was only allowed to live if it sang for the public, right? And get this, Lyle Crocodile being forced to sing for his very life to everybody on the internet was repugnant. It shouldn't have been necessary, right? But this world kills things that are beautiful and small and precious and valuable, right? And so Dungeons and Dragons streamed games, they are not even remotely the most important games. They're the least important games. When Lyle Crocodile sang on What You Got, it was his least important song, right? It was much more important the song he sang in the attic with Josh, the song he sang in the kitchen with Josh's mom, right? So by the way, Josh was played by Wilson Fegley, and Josh's mom was played by Constance Wu. The amazing performances. And Lyle was played by Shawn Mendes. And the reality is, and this is where we land, okay? These stream games, they're for the schmucks. Matthew Mercer's game's pretty good, and it really helped, right? But understand, the important games are your personal kitchen table game, right? Your personal kitchen table game is more important than anything Matthew Mercer will ever do with Critical Role, right? That is the repugnant singing for the world to remain alive. It did work. It worked, right? Like, it kept Dungeons and Dragons alive, and I am convinced without a Matthew Mercer, Dungeons and Dragons would have died, right? But the critters are here, right? And so just realize when you see Matthew Mercer, that's Dungeons and Dragons singing to remain alive. It's not the art that matters in Dungeons and Dragons, right? By the way, sit up and shut down. Sit down and shut up, which is a board game, brilliant board game show. Actually, recently did a show, and they said streamed games of role-playing games are really, what you're really seeing is they are to physical intimacy as adult films are to physical intimacy. It's a caricature. It's not real, and it's really not highly valuable, right? So just remember, stream games are junk. Your physical table is 100 times more important, but we do absolutely owe a debt to streaming. We owe a debt to the critters. We owe a debt to Matthew Mercer for making sure that Dungeons and Dragons was allowed to live, because this world kills anything that is small, beautiful, precious. And that's exactly what Dungeons and Dragons was. But thanks to Matthew Mercer, it didn't remain that way. All that's my humble opinion. I'm ready to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.